welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda Podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hello, and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. In this episode today, I have Amy Wheeler back with us to continue our great discussion. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love it. Amy's going to be a regular on the show, and we just love our discussion. Now, if you didn't catch my first episode with Amy, which is episode 12, where we talk about all the wonderful work that she's doing in the world, I highly recommend that you check that out. So that's episode number 12, where we talk about Ayurveda and yoga and feminine energy. But today, we want to talk about intuition, and I'm so excited for this topic. So let me just do a little bit of a background regarding intuition and what Ayurveda and yoga, the sister sciences, tell us about intuition. Well, Ayurveda and yoga, our sister sciences, bring us on a journey of self-realization. You've heard me say that before, and this is what these sciences are about, creating a heightened sense of awareness. And Ayurveda helps us to understand our dosha or unique mind-body type and encourages regular cleansing to unblock the channels of the body, the physical, the subtle channels, to uncover our body and mind's innate intelligence, our true nature. And then we're encouraged to maintain that balance with daily self-care practices, or Ayurveda calls them dinacharya. Now, yoga is the sister science and a wonderful practice to bring union to the body and mind, and practicing yoga regularly and meditation daily creates space so that awareness can enter. And this is what we're going to discuss today. What is this awareness, otherwise known as our intuition? Now, intuition is called many things. It could be called gut feeling, our inner voice, our instinct, that knowing that we have, the truth of you, your soul. But we all have this intuitive power within us. It's our internal guide to our purpose in this life. And Yogananda said that intuition is soul guidance, appearing naturally in man during those instants when his mind is calm. The cultivation of intuitive calmness requires unfoldment of the inner life. When developed sufficiently, intuition brings immediate comprehension of truth. You can have this marvelous realization, and meditation is the way. So, Amy, what do you think? How do you describe intuition?
I completely agree with Yogananda that it's a marvelous realization, and that meditation is the way that we cultivate this. From my perspective, intuition comes to people in different ways. For some people, it's a kinesthetic feeling or a sensation somatically in the body. For others, it could be a thought that pops in out of nowhere. You're doing something else, and all of a sudden, like a lightning bolt, it pops in. And going back to the feelings and sensations, sometimes when I need my intuition to kick in, it will give me a stomach ache, or my hip will start hurting, something like that.
Okay.
For other people, it could be an actual auditory voice that they hear a word or a phrase. Don't go there. A few days ago, I had an intuitive hit that sent chills all the way down the left side of my body.
Wow.
And then, sometimes I think it just comes in images, whether they're external images that you drive by and see a a great big board or wall that says a word that you need, or sometimes it's an internal image in our mind's eye. So I think for different people, it shows up differently. And as we start to get to know ourselves, we start to see that it probably has a connection to our birth dosha in Ayurveda.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, to be honest, I never thought of it like that different people have, and you hear different people describing how they get their intuitive hits differently. Like they might hear a word or, like you said, see a billboard or feel something in their body or their palms sweating or get goosebumps or chills. But I think that's really interesting. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that and how you think that this intuition is relative to your dosha or mind-body type?
I'm just exploring this idea myself, but I would love for others to explore it with me. And that is that I think when we have more kapha in our constitution, more earth and water, we're more likely to feel things kinesthetically, because that's how kapha people learn.
Yes.
So why wouldn't they feel it in their heart or feel it in their body, these sensations or emotions? So maybe a kapha person would have that. Maybe a vata person by birth who has a lot more of air and space in their constitution, I think theirs would probably be more auditory, or even thoughts, manifesting from the universe and shooting down into their brains.
Yes.
And I think with a more pitta birth constitution, it would be more visual. There'd be more imagery inside and out of the mind. And as we know, pitta people are very, very visual. So then when you start to think about that no person is just one dosha, it's all percentages of each. A pitta kapha person might have some images and some emotional sensations. You can start mixing and matching the two.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I completely believe in that, actually. I'm Pitta Kapha, and I definitely am very visual. I'm a very visual learner. But my intuitive hits come both visually and feeling.
To put another layer on top of all of this, I have even found that when I get out of balance in a particular direction, I start getting my intuition in that direction. So I have a tendency to get out of balance towards the vata direction. And when that happens, I start to have more intuitive hits auditorily and through my thoughts.
Wow.
So that's interesting too, that even when out of balance, we might actually tap into one of the other ways to gain intuition.
Just like we all learn differently depending on our mind-body type, why wouldn't our intuitive hits come to us in different ways depending on our sensitivities and our tendencies?
And I think what you just said about working with your clients, I think it's a beautiful thing when we can help them understand their birth constitution, their learning style, and their potential for intuition, and maybe start paying attention to the type of intuition that may come to them a little easier.
Yes, exactly. Because a lot of times there is this feeling of, intuition, it's very woo-woo, but once you start listening, once you start creating space and awareness around it, it can be magical, and you can have that childlike wonder around it, and it's such an amazing guide for your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting way to lead your life.
And I also think it's our destiny. It's something that we have the responsibility to follow, because each person comes here for a particular purpose, and only you can find that purpose from inside of you. No one outside of you can tell you that. No astrologer, no healer. And so I think it's our responsibility to find our intuition and listen to it so that we can fulfill that deeper meaning of why we're here.
Yes. And this reminds me of something that Osho said, that intuition is only a mirror. It does not create anything. It only reflects. And it reflects that which is so true. And I think what you're saying about, the astrologers and the healers, in my own experience, they can only confirm what you already know.
Right. And when they say it, it rings true. And you say, yes, that's right.
Yeah. Or you burst into tears, or you have this wave of emotion go through your body, or you get the goosebumps, or again, it depends on your dosha. But you instantly know that that's the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll share a quick personal story of when I first started following my intuition was in 2014. That stage I was living in France, and I had my fitness and yoga studio. And living life there, had a great community in that studio, loved it. And actually I was training a client, and she told me she was going to see this famous astrologer who was in town from the States. And I just got this feeling that I should make an appointment. So I made an appointment, and this astrologer was amazing and told me, you're about to go on a spiritual journey, and you're about to give up everything, and you're going to go on this spiritual journey for a year. And at that stage I was, like, hey lady, I've got a business, I've got a life here, and I was planning on going nowhere. And that was actually in October 2013. Fast forward to February 2014, I was closing down my business. I was selling a house. I was getting rid of a lot of my material possessions. I was going off with a rucksack and going off traveling. And that's when I ended up doing my trip to Bali and doing the Ayurvedic Panchakarma and leading me on this whole journey. But within, a few months, everything had changed. But that astrologer just confirmed what was about to come up. And so I had confidence to listen to my intuition then. But so that was an amazing journey, and it's led me on this path. And if you want to know more about that journey, I talk about it in my episode Healing in Bali. But that was just to say to people that how important it is to listen to that intuition, and then you'll get confirmations in different places. Once you start to take the steps forward, like once I started to close my business or started to sell my possessions, then you'll receive confirmations from the universe about that you're in the right direction. And the thing about intuition, Amy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is you're not given the big picture. You're not going to see, in so many years I'm going to be doing this and living here. That it's given to you step by step. But there has to be a certain amount of trust in your intuition in order to follow those steps, because it can be scary and it can be fearful.
I completely agree. Intuition is such a subtle thing that most of us don't even pay attention to at all. But when you get in touch with that very subtle message from your higher self and you start to listen to it, you can almost look irresponsible or crazy to everyone in the outside. Your family, because they don't understand, well, where did you come up with this? You went to a Vedic astrologer and then you decided to follow your intuition? That's just crazy.
Right.
So I think it's very, very subtle. And that's why we have to learn to try to cultivate it.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we access our intuition. And I'm going to add a little story in here about Michelangelo because I love it so much. And it's a great story that when he was ready to sculpt a statue, he would go to the quarry and pick out a big piece of marble. And the way he imagined it is that God or the creator had already created the statue, and it was just his job to get rid of the excess marble. And that's essentially what we're like, right? It's the truth is already inside of ourselves. We already have our true nature, which is there from conception. And our job is to get rid of the excess fear, the ego, and any other obstacles that are hiding the light of our soul so that we can access this intuition, right?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I think what you said about it's a block of rock that is waiting to take away what is no longer needed in order for the truth of the statue to emerge. And unfortunately, because we have so many attachments in this life, when we listen to our intuition, what is no longer needed will be taken away. And I think that's very difficult for a lot of people because it requires a certain amount of trust in yourself, trust in the universe, and detachment, like, oh, I really liked that thing, that man, or that job, or or having my own business. And when you really go with your intuition, you're willing to let things that you actually prefer fall away.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to add another story in because I'm going to get a little bit personal in today's podcast episode, which is a little bit fearful for me, but it's exactly in line with what you're saying. You know, right now I'm living in Southern California. It's beautiful. I live, within steps of the Deepak Chopra's center, and it's a beautiful life here. But recently, there's been a lot of change that happened in November. The lovely cottage I was in by the ocean had to undergo extensive renovations, and I had to move out. So that was the first step. And then I have to say I was very affected by the Me Too movement and did a lot of reflection on the relationship I was in, and really saw that I wasn't living in my truth, and that the relationship that I was in was not in alignment with where I wanted to be or go. The mantra I try to follow is Gandhi's mantra: is what you think, say, and do should be in alignment. And I found that I just wasn't in alignment, and the relationship ended very well. I'm not going into that, but we're still friends and whatnot. But just realized that we weren't in alignment with each other. So in the past couple of months, there's been a lot of change. So I moved, and I'm still in Encinitas, and the relationship has finished. And now I've just got an intuitive hit that I need to go back to the south of France, go back to that community again. And it's funny because obviously I live in this beautiful environment, but still I feel that real pull to get back to Europe and get back to the south of France. And just to add to the story here, I actually went to a new moon ceremony here recently, and the astrologer gives a 10-minute reading for each person in the group. And this was the confirmation that I told her I was moving, and she doesn't know anything about my history with France, that I lived there before, or that I was thinking about going there. And she was looking at my chart, and she goes, the south of France is a really good area for you. It's just really lit up on your chart. So that was a beautiful confirmation that I received, that I'm on the right path. Now, I have no idea what's ahead. Of course, in regards, my business is online, so nothing will change there. The podcast will continue. I'll just move location. But it's a new adventure. But I'm committed to following my intuition.
You are a brave woman. I love it.
But
and can I just reiterate, how much detachment did that take to leave beautiful Southern California, steps from the ocean and steps from the Chopra Center, who's very much in alignment with all that you do? It takes a lot to let some of these amazing things go so that your fullest potential can be expressed in the south of France. And I'll just tell you, I'm coming to see you.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I just really feel that I'm supposed to be there, and my energy is supposed to be there in order to continue the work. And actually, that's what the astrologer said to me. She confirmed again that she said your soul needs you in this area to continue your work. Because in the past 3 years I've been in the Southern California and Encinitas here. It's been a real cocoon for me, and I've done a lot of my own healing and a lot of foundation work on my business. But now I feel in order to grow and get out there more, I need to move back to Europe. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to let the listeners know that I'm in the process of following my intuition. I'll keep you posted on how it goes, and I do. The more I step into my truth, the more that I get confirmation. Okay, so the astrologer, when I first started talking about moving back to France, I was on the Skype with my sister, and I got giddy excited at the thought of moving to France. That was the first time I mentioned it to somebody, and I said to myself, okay, I recognize this feeling, that giddiness that was in me.
Yes.
So that was my first confirmation, and then the astrologer, and things have just been opening up. I found an amazing apartment. Somebody offered me, an apartment to rent, and I found, my scooter, which I used to have, which was still there. I had left it with a friend, and she's like, oh, we never changed the registration, so it's there for you to use. I just told a lot of friends I was coming back, and the welcome has been amazing. And a lot of my clients and yoga students wanted me to start teaching again. So it's just been beautiful. Goodness. Yeah, it's all just flowing. And so these are all confirmations along the way. But I will share with listeners and with you, Amy, that I'm still being tested. You know, that you will get these tests to make sure that you're in alignment. Have you ever received tests along the way?
I really have. But before I answer that question, I just want to tell you that in you following your intuition to take such a big move in your life, you are providing the light for anyone else who's considering a change of job or a breakup or a move for their highest self. You're giving permission that it's okay and go for it. And I just love that you're doing that, especially on this podcast. It's so important.
Thank you. Thanks, my dear.
Yeah. So tests, I mean, life is full of tests. Even when you're on the right path, I think that we have to continuously recommit. Yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm willing. Yes, let's do this. Oh, there's an obstacle. Yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm willing. Yes, let's do this.
Yes.
I don't think everything's going to be easy. It's your reaction to those tests and your ability to stay focused on the goal ahead. Of course, there's tests. Don't let that deter you, or anyone listening. Don't let that deter you, because that is reality. Not everything is perfect.
Right.
There's, thorns on every rose.
Yes. And I'm getting some tests now of things that are coming my way, and I realize they're tests. I have the awareness, thankfully, around that. And then once I pass the test, as it were, then it's like I'm given another confirmation that, yes, you're on the right path. So just know that it's not going to be all rose petals and rose-colored glasses, that there are going to be challenges to come up, but just to see them as tests to, are you really sure you're going to stand in your truth and be in alignment with your truth. So yeah, I think it's a exciting journey. It's an amazing journey, and it's wonderful to have the freedom and the opportunities to be able to make these decisions. And we're so lucky and fortunate to live in a time when we can be so free to decide our faith and what we want to do with our lives. So yeah, my encouragement for people would be to check in with yourself and not to let fear stop you from what you want to do in life.
Could not agree more.
Right. So what I want to talk about now is about, sometimes we can get confused. I remember at the start when I was following my intuition, I was really confused about what is my intuition and what's my ego or what's my mind. And, as we grow and learn and our rational mind takes over, we become attached to our identity in the world, and our ego can take control. Now, I should point out here, I believe that there's a positive ego and a negative ego. So I think ego has its place, and our ego helps us decipher who we are and gives us an identity. But then there's also this negative ego, and the ego is our self-image. However, it's not our true self. It's labels, it's masks, sometimes it's images or judgments. And we have to go beyond the ego, shedding these illusions we've created and being authentic and true to our soul. It's important about how we speak from our heart. And I think that's when we can really touch people and make a difference, is when we're speaking from our own experience. And what I want to talk about now, Amy, is how we determine the difference between ego and intuition. And actually, I found this great blog entitled Ego versus Intuition. It's by Catalyst Yogi from the 3ho.org website. And I really loved his discussion points. And I want to use these to kind of talk about the difference between ego and intuition, if I may. So let me read the first one. The first one says that ego is logical and intuition is creative. And so it goes on to say that ego will make decisions based on past experiences, like, oh, this worked in the past, therefore it should work now. Whereas intuition isn't logical, it's creative. It's something that goes against the norm. What do you think about that?
I was just having this discussion with myself a few nights ago. I'm creating these 800-hour yoga therapy programs, which is so much work. And I said to myself, my logical mind said, Amy, what are you doing? This is so much work. You're building a huge, massive kingdom. Are you sure you want to do this? Your simple life will no longer exist, living up on the mountain. And I had this logical, like, no, Amy, don't do it. My God, just keep it simple. Just, and
interesting,
this creative part of me, the intuition said, don't worry, honey, it's going to be okay. This is what you're here to do.
Right.
Let it unfold.
Right.
It's okay. And kind of I felt soothed and I got the message that I will receive help. It isn't all on me.
Beautiful.
It's going to flow effortlessly with help of other feminine goddess warriors, and that I don't have to think about it all today. Just do one thing at a time. What do you need to do between now and lunch?
Right.
And continue on the path. So
it's so true. That's a beautiful story, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's so true that if we think of the big picture, it could be like, oh my goodness, way overwhelming. And yeah, I definitely understand you wanting to preserve your beautiful, balanced life. But this is something that is bursting to come out of you, and it's your skill set. And I think that's beautiful that you got the acknowledgement that it's okay.
Right. And I think it goes to the second point, which you may get into in a moment, that ego is fear-based. My fear is, oh my gosh, that's so much work. What am I doing? Intuition is based on love. And what came to me is all you need to do is be loving and loved for the next 3 hours in the training that you're doing today. That's all you need to do, Amy, is just go in there and be love, accept love, give love, and don't worry about all that other stuff.
Yeah, because essentially we can't control what's happening. We don't know what the future is. We only know this present moment. So why bother worrying about it? And and like you said, intuition is based on love, and it's about following that so that you can get to that source of love within you, and that your true nature, which needs to be expressed.
And I think if we do that in every moment, focus on the love, focus on the creative power of Shakti, wherever we end up is going to be okay, because the joy is in the journey, not the final destination. Right. And I know that when I can approach my work through love instead of fear, and not through my logical mind as much as my creative mind, I always have a good experience, and the results actually end up being lovely. It's when I go at it with fear and logical intellect that I don't enjoy the journey, and the results actually don't turn out very nice either.
Right, exactly. And actually I have a quote here from Einstein. I have all these quotes from all these luminaries on intuition, but Einstein said that intuition is the real value in life, and that intellect has little to do on the road to discovery or self-realization. And that there are times when there is a leap in consciousness where a solution comes out of nowhere and you don't know why or how. And that's it. It's just following those breadcrumbs along the way and letting go of that fear. And I've definitely experienced that fear. Like when I left my corporate job, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't have my benefits anymore. I don't have my paid vacation. I don't have, all these benefits that come with these, the so-called benefits that come with the job. And there was fear of letting go of that. But you find that once you step on that path, you will be rewarded, and the universe will provide.
Can I just tell a really brief story that kind of plays into that?
Yes.
I have a friend who wanted to open a studio for a long, long time, just didn't have the money. And as we know, having a yoga studio isn't always very profitable.
Right.
But she had kind of a benefactor come to her and say, I love the work you're doing. I've watched you for 20 years. How can I help you? And she said, well, I'd love a studio. And they looked at different places, and every place was, of course, too expensive to even sustain itself. So the man said, look, what could you pay and still have enough to make a living? And she said, well, it's so embarrassing to even say this number to you because it's not in your best interest, and I don't want you to feel offended. And he said, please say the number. And she told him, and he said, let's do it. And he bought a building, renovated it to her specifications. She is paying a very, very low monthly fee. And this gentleman is, it's far less than he has to pay on the mortgage. So he's basically contributing about 60% to the business every month. Yet it's her business. He's not going to take any money from her. It's a gift.
Wow. That is
and
amazing.
She had the courage to keep her mind and heart clear. And when the knock came at the door, she was willing to speak her truth, even though it sounded ridiculous.
Right.
And now she has a 10-year lease at 40% of the price of anyone else in the neighborhood.
Wow. That is a fantastic story. And thank you for sharing that. And it's so true that even if it sounds crazy, or things that are like, oh my God, how is this going to work out? Putting it out there or saying it out and just see what happens.
And answering the door when people knock. I mean, we've all been doing great work. Our hearts are pure. We have good intentions. We want to help humanity suffer less. And there are wealthy people that want meaning in their lives and are willing to contribute. So we have to be able to have enough confidence to answer the call and say yes and be a part of this, and then not give away our power to someone who's wealthy. She could have said, let's go into business together.
Yes.
But she didn't. She said, I really want to guide my own ship. And I don't mean to offend you, but I want to stay the sole owner of my business. And this is what I can afford to rent a space for. Right? She didn't give up her dream out of low self-esteem to please someone with money. Yeah. She said, universe, I need both.
Yes. Yeah. And see, and that's it. It's just putting out there what you want, even though it might sound like, how is this ever going to happen? How is this ever going to come to fruition? But you don't know if it's, if it's meant to be, it will, but you have to put it out there and talk about it and express it to others and not just keep it hidden inside you. And I always find the minute I start saying something out loud, it's a snowball effect. It's rolling down the hill and it's gathering snow and it's like, oh my goodness, it's out in the world. And before you know it, it's a life of its own. And then things start manifesting for it to come to fruition.
And underneath all of that, the reason your snowball starts gaining steam is because you are doing good, pure work. And I think when other people see that, they recognize the authenticity, they recognize the goodness, and they want to contribute to that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they want to be on that train with you.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great story. How wonderful. What amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, amazing opportunity. And that she stood in her truth and went with it. Wow. So we're talking about, yes, the ego is fear-based and intuition is based on love. And again, another quote I have from Carla Mice, who said that we often hesitate to follow our intuition out of fear. Usually we're afraid of the changes in our life or the actions that it will bring. Intuitive guidance, however, is all about change. It's an energetic data ripe with the potential to influence the rest of the world. To fear change, she says, but to crave intuitive clarity is like fearing the cold, dark night while pouring water on the fire that lights our cave. Truth strikes without mercy. We fear our intuitions because we fear the transformational power within our revelations. Whew.
That is the most powerful thing you've said all day. I mean, it is so true. We want to listen to our intuition. We want to be guided to our correct path, and yet we're too scared and we don't want to make any changes.
Right.
It's like trying to ride a horse in two directions at the same time.
Right. And what I would encourage people to do is to look at it rather than looking from a fearful place. And again, like we said, trying to see the whole picture. It's like, oh my God, how is this going to work out? And how is this going to happen? Look at it with the eyes of a child, with that childlike wonder, and say, wow, what could happen? And if I take a step in this direction and just watch the confirmations that you get and have that excitement about, wow, what's possible? Because really anything is possible if you're in your truth.
I agree. And I don't think that is exclusive of really following through with the hard work that it takes to make a move to the south of France or to write a business plan. It's not that the intuition is 100% of the answer. You get the intuition, you follow your truth, and you might have to do some darn hard work on the ground to make it happen.
Right.
You do have to add up the numbers. You do, my friend that I just told you the story about, she wrote a big business plan and laid it all out for herself before she went back to the gentleman and said, this is what I can afford. She didn't just sign a lease with a number out of the sky, right? So it's interesting, how do you listen to your intuition and then also set boundaries and take care of yourself and not end up in a place you shouldn't be because you didn't do the groundwork.
Exactly. Yes, you do need that structure and the foundation in place and whatever other support that you need to help you along the way. Absolutely. There's
a balance between the intuition and the intellect that it's like a dance.
Yeah.
And usually we're depending so heavily on the intellect that we have zero intuition. So we're just saying, okay, go with your intuition, but also do your groundwork.
I agree. And it's like we're saying earlier, the intuition is a mirror. It's just reflecting to you what's possible. But then you have to put the work in.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be big moves. It could be something small. It doesn't have to be big dramatic changes in your life. It could be something very simple.
You get an email and you're thinking, well, should I respond with a strict, hard boundary or should I respond with some sweetness and compassion? And you close your eyes and take a few breaths and go into your heart and say, what shall I write? And then you go from there.
Right. Absolutely. And just playing with it on a day-to-day basis. Like if you get a gut feeling like, oh, maybe I should walk this street or go into this store or whatever, just play with it. And see what happens when you go into that store.
It is so fun. I had a 6-week vacation, if you'll call it that, in Hawaii once. And I had nobody with me, and I had no time schedule for any day. And so I decided for that 6-week period, all I would do is listen to my intuition because there was no outcome results writing on it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was the most magical, synchronistic time of my whole life, and it gave me the confidence that I can do this in daily life even when outcomes are writing on it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my friends here, her and I, at the end of the day, we usually have this chat about, well, what happened today? What magic happened in your day? And the stories that come up are great. And we're going to give guidelines at the end of the podcast about how you can develop your intuition more. But one of them is just keeping track of these synchronicities or coincidences, as we call them, because it can really strengthen that belief and that trust in your intuition.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magical. And another story I have that just popped into my head, so I'm going to share, is when I moved to Encinitas, and I moved to Encinitas on intuition too. I knew nobody here, and when I was doing my traveling throughout Asia, I mentioned to somebody, I'm thinking about going back to the west coast of the U.S. this time, and Erica is her name, and she mentioned to me that, oh, you should go to Encinitas, you'll love it. So I Googled Encinitas, and the first thing I read was, oh, it's the town where people will stop to let you cross the street. And then I saw it was right on the ocean. I'm like, sold. And I just knew that was where I would go. And usually I was the type of person who would research something to death, like to make sure I had looked at all my options and researched all the towns. But this, I was just going with it. And then I came here. So that was when I was in Bali. And I put a photo of Encinitas and Moonlight Beach, where I wanted to live, on my iPad wallpaper. So I looked at it every day. And then fast forward, I moved to Encinitas, and I was staying in San Diego first. And I came up to Encinitas on the train, and I was meeting somebody who had been connected with, a yoga teacher, and I was waiting for her at Moonlight Beach. I said, I'm going to walk up in this area where I have the photo on my iPad, and I feel I'm going to meet someone. I'm going to see a rental sign, something. I'm going to find my place to live up there. And I was walking up there. I only had about 10 minutes. And on my way back down to meet her, I saw a guy fixing a lock in the door. There was no sign or anything. And I said, okay, I'm going to be cheeky. And I walked up the garden path. I was like, is this place going to be for rent? I just had a feeling. And he was like, oh, I don't know. And at that moment, the construction worker came around the corner. He's like, yeah, we're just finishing, laying the carpets and stuff. It's going to be for rent. She hasn't listed it yet. I was like, well, I'm interested. He's like, do you want to see it? And brought me in, took my number. I continued down. The landlady called me, and we both just laughed because we knew she was aware that this was definitely meant to be as well. And then we met her that day and signed the lease, and that was in 5 days of being back in the US. And it was just, that's beautiful. That was amazing. And those things I love them. They're great.
And then you lived there for a couple of years until now, yes?
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and now it's time to move on. So the reason I want to share these stories is just to encourage people to start tuning into that intuition, because it is our soul guidance. And let's get back to these points now about ego versus intuition, because this is what I got hung up on for a long time and couldn't really decipher what my intuition was. But going back to this Catalyst Yogi blog, and where he says that the ego sounds harsh, whereas the intuition is neutral. And the ego can make you believe negative things about yourself. Like in my case, it was always like, who am I to be doing a podcast? Or how can I help people? Like, who am I, to be doing this work? Whereas intuition will guide you on a path of love and self-respect. So, we really watching out for that. Like the intuition will never be negative talk. What do you think on that, Amy?
I could not agree more. And I was just sitting here thinking how there's been probably 3 or 4 major opportunities that have come up in my life that I got this intuitive hit. You are going to do this. So they hadn't hired me. They hadn't offered me a position. They hadn't, it was still weeks or months away before I would know if the opportunity was coming to fruition. But as soon as I spoke to the very first person about the potential opportunity, I knew it was a done deal. Wow. And not only there was no negativity around it, but I got a lot of clarity, like, wow, that opportunity is going to have a lot of positives. And I had a lot of clarity and it comes with all these responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I get hit with that, it isn't always a total excitement about, woohoo, this is going to be the most amazing thing ever. It's like, this is what you'll be doing, Amy. And here's the pros and here's the cons. Right. And you're going to, it's going to be hard work. But here's your responsibility. Go forward. And so for me, there's always this bittersweet quality that I'm stepping into a big thing. Mm-hmm. That it's kind of like, how they say nobody would ever get married if they knew how much work marriage is.
Right.
Well, for me, my intuition knows how much work it is.
Yeah.
And tells me, like, yes, it's hard work and you still have to do it. Go for it.
Right. But do you think that the pro-con list is the intellect?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I'm not the type of person who can just fly by the seat of my pants to the south of France. I'm just not. I think I have way too much kappa for that. So the intuition hits. I have the conversation with my higher self. I listen to it. I agree to go forward. And then I come back to, okay, what are the nuts and bolts of what do I need to do for me to follow my intuition?
Mm. Right. Yes, and I do think like it's part of the structure, isn't it? It's like you said, it's the balance between intuition and intellect, and making that pro-con list. I do it, but knowing that to also have awareness that it's not to live by that. It's good to have that structure and that foundation and looking at all the angles, but also having this belief and trust in that intuition as well. So there is that balance all the time.
Well, and I will even say that sometimes the con list looks larger But it doesn't mean that I don't have to listen to my intuition.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Because the gifts and the beauty that are going to come out of it, they always are equal or greater to the hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's this, it's just always this calling, right? It's always there. And this is another one of the points made in that blog, is that the ego jumps around where the intuition is consistent, that you'll hear the same things, or you'll feel the same things, or you'll get the same guidance over and over. It's a consistent voice constantly. Like you might say one day, oh, you know, in my case, I had the first conversation with my sister. I was like, I wonder, like, you know, thinking about moving back to France, and I felt that giddiness. And then there was continuous confirmations. And then I was meditating. This is another thing. I was meditating one day and I was like, okay, you know, creator, whoever I'm talking to, show me some guidance that I'm making the right decision. So after meditation, I was on the way to the gym or something. I was just checking Facebook real quick. The first story on Facebook was Macron, the president of France, a picture of him, and it said that the London Economist had named France the country of the year for 2017. That was the first thing on my Facebook page. Oh. So I was like, okay, thanks. But
all I'm going to say is all of us from the United States want to move to France with you.
Come on and visit. Well, I'm going to be doing retreats. A little shameless plug. I'm going to be doing retreats, so keep posted on my Facebook Elements Facebook page and website. Anyhow, so that is that consistent. Have you experienced that? That is a consistent voice of intuition?
Yes, to the point where it's talking to me and I say, go away. And then it comes back and it tells me again. I'm like, really? And then it comes back. I'm like, okay, I surrender. Fine. Yeah. Like sometimes it'll just keep hammering at me and I really don't want to do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it won't stop. So then I have to give in and surrender to the process of following my intuition.
Right. And do you think that's part of your kapha nature, is because kapha doesn't like
I can't change fast.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
It takes a long time for me to make a U-turn. And so I might get 3 weeks to 3 months of intuition. I'm very good at listening to my intuition and hearing it and talking with it. But I can't make the physical changes very quickly.
Right. Yeah. And that's good. And being compassionate with yourself, because you know that's your nature.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
And I know that's the process for me, and it's going to be very different. I think, you know, if you have more of a Vata nature with more air and space, you can literally make a decision at 2:00, and by 3:00, you have ejected from your previous life, and you've called everyone and told them your new plan, and you're on the airplane by Saturday.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope people take consolation in that, and just knowing that not everyone's the same, and for a person to do something like that, for a really rash, abrupt change, that would be very unsettling for your constitution and wouldn't be in alignment with yourself. So don't think like, oh, I wish I could do that. No, it's just not for you. You do it in your own way.
Right, and I think just as the intuition comes in differently for me through my body sensations and emotions, the manifestation of how I follow my intuition is also going to be very kapha in nature.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it's a good reminder for people, you know, that it doesn't have to be, it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Right.
Now, the last point in this blog, which I want to discuss, is that it said that ego protects a mental image, whereas intuition protects the soul's journey. Where the ego can have you acting a certain way because of a title. For example, if you're a manager, a manager's supposed to act in a certain way and doesn't sweep the floors or orders people around, whereas intuition understands that we are all equal and that there are no hierarchies and there's no image to protect, as the true self cannot be affected. And that's very true.
Yes. I mean, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, we call this asmita, or over-identification with something that is not my true nature, whether that's my title or my job or how much money I make. And the soul doesn't care.
Yep. Yeah.
And in fact, I think the soul is happy to let go of those things. They're just extra baggage to try to manage.
It feels heavy, right?
Yes, yes.
That's the visual I get. It just feels like heavy, having to carry this, this label, like, oh, I have to act in this way, or I have to do this. No, you make your own life, you make your own journey, and there's no conditioned path, that we all have to find our own way.
Right.
And, intuition is kind of that bridge between the gap of instinct and reason, and between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And science tells us that only 20% of our brain's gray matter is used for conscious thought, while 80% is dedicated to non-conscious thought. Isn't that amazing?
That
80%.
is amazing.
Now, there have been recent very exciting studies. I was looking at this new PubMed report that have shown a gut-brain connection, and that it plays an important part in not only our GI function, our gastrointestinal function, but also our intuitive decision making. So what what it's saying is that our digestive health affects our higher cognitive function, including our intuitive decision making. That's incredible.
It really is. I mean, if you look at the research on the microbiome and how it's literally a community of living beings inside your gut that are very happy because you're eating local and organic and seasonal, and they're having a party and life is good and your intuition is going to be very strong, versus eating processed foods, dead foods, fast foods. The microbiome gets sick. The whole community in your gut gets very sick, and it doesn't talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
And your intuition goes down.
Yeah.
So that connection between your microbiome and your gut and your higher self, it can be enhanced or depleted.
Absolutely. And actually, I did a whole episode on this. If you guys want to check it out, it's called Why Gut Health Matters. But there is this relationship between the gut and the brain. In fact, our gut now is referred to as the second brain. And Ayurveda believes that our intuition is affected by our stress levels, our lifestyle, and what we eat, and that the food carries this emotional charge. And like you said, Amy, it's the microbes carried by the food that can be emotionally charged. So as we talked about processed food in our previous chat, Amy, where it has this tamasic quality, causes this tamasic mental quality of inertia, no get up and go, that feeling of lethargy. And the processed food affects our intuition, but also if we're eating while angry, while stressed, or emotional, this all can have a negative charge, and will charge the microbes in the food negatively, and will lead to a whole host of health problems if it's carried on a regular basis, and also a dulling of our intuition. And research has shown that intuition seems to be enhanced in conjunction with positive emotions as opposed to negative emotions. So we have to look at not only what we eat, but the whole scope of our life.
And to add to that, it's very well known in Ayurveda that the mood of the person cooking the food actually changes those microbes too. And this is why it's very difficult to eat out, because you don't know who's cooking your food and what kind of mental, emotional state they're in.
It's true. And oftentimes, you see those cooking shows and they're in the kitchen, and the kitchen's a stressful environment in those shows.
And a lot of them are very angry.
Right? What is that?
Yes.
I've noticed that. I've definitely experienced when I used to work in restaurants when I was younger, chefs throwing things across the room. It's like, okay, yeah, that's
We're not going to eat there.
No. And that's why we encourage home cooking. It'll definitely put that love into the food. So what I'd love to talk about now, Amy, as we finish up the call today, is how we can develop our intuition. Our intuition, like we said, will lead us on the path or the people or circumstances that we will find fulfilling. It's going to follow our true nature. We'll become self-realized. And it's considered our sixth sense. And it's just like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it will become. So let's leave the listeners today with ways in which that they can develop their intuition. I have a long list here. Do you want to start off?
I love your list. Why don't we do a couple of yours, and then we'll do one or two of mine, and we'll go back to yours.
Yes, and it will flow along the way as our conversations always do. But the first thing is we talked about living a sattvic lifestyle, and which will help promote a healthy gut or gastrointestinal tract, and eating a sattvic diet to feed your body with happy, healthy microbes. Now, you might say, well, what's a sattvic lifestyle? Well, a sattvic lifestyle is where you're speaking your truth. You're living in alignment with your truth. So again, going back to that, the Gandhi mantra, which I love, is what you think, say, and do are in alignment. And that's sattva. And also not insulting others. And these are all pointers from Ayurveda. These are not from me, but from Ayurveda. Another way of living a sattvic life is to be humble. Oh, if more people could have more humility, what a wonderful world it would be. This is one of the characters which is beautiful in a person, to be humble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be kind is another one. Be informed on a subject that's important to you. Respect the elderly. Amen. I talk about this a lot. Be kind to animals, right? If you see a person is good to animals, you know they are a good person. Support others who are in fear, pain, depression, or anxiety. So that's really about having compassion and empathy for others rather than judgment. Guiding others to follow the right path in a gentle way, not in a, look here, let me tell you what you got to do,
right.
But just sharing. Mm-hmm.
And allowing space or holding space so they can hear what's going on inside of them and instead of telling them what you think they should do.
Right. Yeah. Like, pitta.
Yes.
I'm pitta. I can be very good, but let me tell you what to do. But
I've got it all figured out for you. I heard this funny quote recently that I want to share. It says, instead of be the change you want to see in the world, it's get others to be the change that you want to see in the world. That's not what we're talking about. That's not something.
There you go. Exactly. I love that. And practice meditation is another way to live a sattvic life. Did you want to add any more to how to live? A sattvic life is true behavior, truth in yourself, in your community, in how you present yourself in your community.
I also, for me, because I live in a place filled with nature, it's about living in alignment with the gunas. When the sun comes up, when the sun goes down, what activities I do at certain times of the day. I have many, many kitties, and they are completely aligned in their gunas with nature. And so when they start sprinting around, running around, playing, I know, that's what nature's doing.
Wow,
that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
When they're hungry, I eat because I think, they're closely connected to nature. They must know that it's that time.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that. The animals, I believe, have that instinct that we used to have. We've just lost.
Right.
Yeah, and to uncover that. But that's brilliant. That's a great indicator for people. Watch your animals because they have more of a connection to the circadian rhythms and the gunas than we have.
Unless they have synced to the owner who is out of balance.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And to find out more about the circadian rhythms, just check out, I did a whole episode on that, about how the energies throughout the day affect you, you're emotionally, behaviorally, and physically. So check out that episode if you want to know more about how to live in sync with the circadian rhythms. Great. Was there anything else, Amy, on the sattvic life?
Well, according to yoga, we have this certain time of day, and some of you are not probably going to want to do this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. There's a time of day called Brahma Muhurta, and it is the time of day that in India, the highest mantras are either listened to or chanted, and specifically for Brahma Muhurta, we use Gayatri, but it's the 96 minutes before sunrise. So depending on what sunrise is for you in your location, you would go backwards, about an hour and a half, and get up before the sunrise and put the mantras on and practice to them or bathe to them or cook to them. So this is something I'm committed to in 2018, that instead of getting up and watching news, which is so disturbing and so makes me have so much fear and anger and sadness, I'm now committing to, because I'm an early riser, I get up around 4 or 4:30 every day, to getting the mantras going, especially Gayatri mantra. I have a playlist of Gayatris, and to just have my first hour and a half of my day be completely sattvic and pure. where my mind is actually being set right for the entire day.
Beautiful. And I think that's very important because at this time of day, nature is still. There's less distraction, right? Because throughout the day, if it's like, oh, I'll meditate later, there's more likely to be distraction and stress in your day. But this is a prana-rich time of day. The time before sunrise it's just so quiet. It's my favorite time of day. I love it.
Love it.
So let's go on to our sattvic list and how to develop your intuition. So we talked about the sattvic life, which we just discussed. We've talked about this before, eating sattvic foods in a calm environment. So that would be more soul foods, as I say. Soul standing for seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. And I felt we've discussed that in other episodes. But living closer to nature, eating in tune with the seasons, really key, because nature gives us what we need each season to keep us in balance. And also respecting your mind-body type or dosha.
And I would also add that when we eat before, we should really think through all the people and animals and Mother Nature, how they contributed to get that food on our plate.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That this farmer picked it and then this trucker drove it over here, or whatever happened. And thank you for the cow for giving me milk, or the chicken for an egg.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. And what it does as well is giving gratitude, like you said, Amy, for your food. And it brings you into that present moment so that you're aware. Because if you're eating in front of the TV and you're just, on autopilot and you're not paying attention to your food, the microbes are going to be charged from whatever you're listening to, especially if it's the news. If you eat your meal while you're watching the news and those you have stress in your body, those microbes are going to be charged negatively. So shutting down, or getting away from your computer, shutting off the TV, paying attention to your meal, and having that gratitude beforehand really brings you in, like, okay, now I'm going to focus on my meal. And that's really important.
Right.
Yeah. And if you work and you eat at your desk, take a few minutes away. Your work
Absolutely.
is it's not worth it to your health to be.
And eating in the car. No more eating in the car.
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah, because it's so stressful. Yeah, so try to really make a point of taking time out for your meals. Okay, the next one is about developing your 5 senses for a higher perception of reality. And Ayurveda gives us tips on this. For the eyes, there's exercises you can do where you focus on something close to you for 5-10 seconds and then focus on something away from you, or focusing on a flame, sometimes a candle flame. For the ears, it's silence. Going into absolute silence is really good for the ears. And maybe doing that at that early time in the morning, just sitting in silence.
Right.
And then for the nose is where you have a saline solution in a neti pot, or nasya, where you're putting oil in the nose. For the tongue, it's scraping the tongue. We've talked about this in the Dinacharya, scraping that ama or toxins off your tongue every morning. And also cleansing regularly helps to re-enliven the taste buds, because we can get desensitized. The taste buds can get desensitized if we're eating a lot of salt. And so cleansing can help really make those taste buds more sensitive. So that's really good to do that. And the last one, touch, we talk about abhyanga and giving yourself some self-love with the abhyanga. And putting that oil on your body every morning, and again just having a practice of gratitude and compassion for your healthy body, and giving yourself, touching your body and checking in, and that's important. Anything else to add there, Amy, with the senses?
I think that's lovely. That the other thing I might add is that when you're overusing certain senses, let others have a rest. So, for example, I just got done teaching an 8-day program, and I was overusing my eyes and my ears.
Right.
And the tendency would be to overeat to have enough energy, to teach so much.
Yes.
But really, because I'm overusing my eyes and my ears, I want to give the other senses a rest and eat more simply and eat less food, so that the amount of sensory information in total that I have to digest is not overkill. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yes, absolutely.
And then the whole purpose of Dinacharya in the morning is to cleanse your senses, all 5 of them. They're all included in there, so that you have clarity of your senses and you can discriminate wisely throughout the day with your tongue, with your eyes, with your ears.
Yeah. It's really about starting the day as you mean to go on, right? And you take that time, like in the circadian rhythm podcast episode that I mentioned earlier, we talk about the importance of going to bed at 10 o'clock because that pitta energy is coming in. It can give us the illusion of a second wind, but it's not for you to be working and up and about watching TV. It's for detoxing the body. It's for cleansing. It's for restoring your body and getting you ready for the next day. So it would start with getting to bed early and then getting up is where you're feeling fresh and ready to go and starting out your day where you're not jumping out of bed and running, that you're starting out your day focusing on your body with the dinacharya. And then the next point I have here is developing your sixth sense with your mind and creating mental space with meditation and breath work. And doing that first thing in the morning is ideal because you have that prana-rich time of day and because you have that quietness at that time.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's, 5-10 minutes. It doesn't have to be you don't think, I have to do 20 minutes, I have to do 30 minutes. Even just 5 minutes at the start of the day can be helpful. What do you think, Amy?
I do. I mean, I take that time before I've even gotten out of bed. I've just realized I'm awake, and I say a little prayer as I'm lying there, and I say, is there anything that I need to know for today? And I just lie there with, in my parasympathetic nervous system, and I'm telling you, I get downloads every darn morning. Wow. And it's actually my favorite few moments of the day.
Mm-hmm. That's really nice, just to ask yourself that simple question. Is there anything I need to know for the day?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to add that. I like it.
Great. Good.
The next one is paying attention to your dreams. So this is how you can strengthen your intuition and maybe keeping a dream journal or keep track of coincidences along the way.
Yeah. Patanjali says that too, as one of the tools of yoga is to pay attention to your dreams. That is the 80% of the unconscious thoughts that you just mentioned. Mm. Your dreams will bring those up for you, and they can be gold.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's going back to that childlike wonder. Like, ooh, yes. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What's the possibilities in that? It's just so exciting. Another one is to have fun. To distract the cognitive mind. So by drawing, dancing, journaling, when we're distracted, that's a lot of times when intuitive hits come. Like when I'm, for example, if I'm working out or if I'm in the shower or where I'm completely distracted. I love dancing. Sometimes I'll get them when I'm dancing. But that is key because if we're constantly being entertained or our senses are occupied, that can cause a distraction where we don't hear that intuition.
Yeah. And, you're saying it's dancing. I like to go to the gym. And when I'm at the gym, it's like there's nothing else in my mind. And that actually for me is when thoughts come through. It's interesting that even though I'm moving my body, I actually don't think cognitively very much at the gym, and I feel like the intuition takes those moments to shoot me some information.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely, because your mind, your intellect is not on fire. You're not sitting in front of your computer or trying to think. You're just like, okay, this is a time when I can switch off a little.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'd encourage the listeners to have more fun, schedule fun. We all need more play in our day.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is to pay attention to your body. I talked about this earlier where when I got, started talking about France, I got really giddy. But pay attention to how your body reacts to things. Like, is your heart beating fast or sweaty palms? If you get just a funny feeling about someone or something or a wave of emotion, that's another one I used to get. Like a wave of emotion goes from my toes right up to my head when I get hit on the truth of something. But start paying attention to your body. And again, like Amy said at the start of the podcast, that intuition can come in different ways for different people, but just having this sense of wonder that your body can read things even before we acknowledge them, sometimes mentally.
Always. I mean, it is shocking to me how my cognitive mind won't register good or bad. But if I get a chill down the left side of my body, I've figured out that is a yes, go for it. That's amazing. We love it.
Yeah.
If I get a chill down the middle of my body, that's usually get the hell out of here right now.
Oh.
This is not safe. Run. Yeah, so where I get these sensations in my body, I've started to understand that the cognitive mind has been bypassed altogether, but I better listen and do what it says immediately.
Wow. And then once you do it, have you found, obviously you found it to be true because you still continue to follow it. Wow. Yeah.
That's how I was kind of curious. Why is it down the middle once or the left side or the back of my neck sometimes? And I've started to kind of track it now. Oh, okay. I hear you.
That's great. And that's a good note for the listeners, is to keep track. Like we said, the dreams or the coincidences, keep track of these feelings because your body's talking to you all the time. And then this can be a huge resource of information for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then learn to feel, not think. We've talked about this. Be childlike. Play with your intuition. If you get a gut feeling to call someone or to take a different route home or to go into a store, just do it and see what happens. Play with it. It's fun. Like sometimes I go out in an afternoon and be like, okay, let's see what's going to happen today.
Right. And that's what I got this lovely opportunity many years ago to do in Hawaii for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yes.
Just go with the flow and let it unfold.
Right, absolutely. And that's exactly, I had a similar thing when I left France and I went off traveling for that year. I made no plan. I just I started in Thailand and then, went Laos and did all that route. But I would just meet people along the way. And then, sometimes at the start of the journey, I would like, oh my goodness, I only have a couple of days and I have to leave and I don't know where I'm going. But then the next day someone would come and like, do you want to come with us here? We're going to this place and then it would just flow. And it's so exciting to do that and just to see what happens. And I encourage all of you out there to play with your intuition. It can just be a little thing, like I said, calling somebody, going a different route on the way home from work or into a different store, and then share your stories on the New Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. The link will be in the show notes here. I'd love to hear your stories. Another one is, we talked about this earlier, is to align with your values. Like Carla Mai said once, never betray yourself. And that just sent shivers all over my body when I heard her say that on the Oprah show. Never betray yourself. I think that's something that's hugely important for each one of us to remember.
And I think especially when it comes to partnerships and love interests, sometimes there is a ton of chemistry between two people. And we take that as a green light. My intuition is woohoo, right? And I don't believe that. Sometimes I think we have really strong chemistry with people who are actually not good for us, that are helping us to, on a soul level, the soul recognizes that they're helping us to work out some early childhood dysfunction that needs to be worked out. And so we take that chemistry as a green light and we betray ourselves. Yeah. And that is not intuition, I don't feel.
No, and I have experience of that. Yes. Because this was my, the last relationship I was in was great chemistry, but I felt, and I'm so thankful for the relationship because it taught me so much and it's led me on this path. And, I know it has taught me so many lessons and taught me how to step into my truth. So it's, there's no regrets. It's been a great experience and has led me on this path. But I got confused at the start and thought it was like, oh, this is meant to be and this is my intuition. And no, it wasn't. And while it's maybe taken me down another path, I was brought back again. But I was definitely hit with the 2x4 along the way. to tell me you're on the wrong path, sister. Change course.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
You know, when I met my husband, I had all the intuitive signs before I even met him the 2 weeks prior.
Oh, really?
And when I saw him, I had that intuitive hit that, yep, he's it from the moment I laid eyes on him.
Wow.
But every date, every time we got together for the first 3 years, I asked myself, am I betraying myself?
Yeah.
Am I staying on path? Is this in alignment with my mission?
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't say yes, 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 that I was living my dream and my truth, and he happens to match up with that well.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been able to say yes, I would have had to let him go, even though the chemistry was amazing, and I probably would have never found another beautiful love interest like that.
Yeah.
But I would not have been able to give up myself just because the chemistry was there.
Yes, I hear you. Yeah. And it's great that you asked yourself along the way. I think I fooled myself along the way for many years, and that's okay. It's just all meant to be. I've, like I said, no regrets, and it's all good. This was part of my journey. It was meant to break me open to where I am now and to step into my truth.
So can we just unpack that for a moment? I know we've been going on so long, but how do we stop from fooling ourselves? Because I've had many relationships where I, too, fooled myself into thinking the chemistry meant soulmate.
Yeah.
And I would like to just take a moment to unpack, I feel that, in yoga we say there's sukha, there's the expansion of the heart space and feeling light and free. And then there's dukkha, the contraction of the heart space and just feeling dark and contracted. And I would ask people to look at what percentage of the time are you feeling the light expansiveness in your heart when you're with your new partner versus the contraction in your heart. And if it's like 80 dukkha, 20 sukha, I don't care how good the chemistry is. That's not it. I think all relationships have some contraction if they're healthy, meaning a little dukkha in the heart, but it shouldn't be a majority of the time that you're feeling sad and upset and disappointed and resentful. Right. Like if we're feeling that even 60% of the time or even 50% of the time, to me, that's a betrayal of our connection to our deeper self. Something's off.
Absolutely. And deep down that something's off. And maybe it's a thing that you're just not ready to make the change, or like Carla Mai said, like intuition comes with a great amount of change and transformation, and maybe you're not ready. But I find what happens is that you're given signals along the way, and you're given things will happen, and you go, okay, I see this, and you choose to either look at it and take note of it, or you like put the blinders on and be like, but I don't want to leave.
Yes.
And those things get worse and worse and more upsetting or more stressful along the way until the universe is like, look at here.
Look at here, Missy.
Don't make me come down there.
Yes, you
and
deserve
hit you
better.
With this 2x4.
Well, not only that, but we get abused for months or years only to be dumped in the end anyway. I mean, I'm not saying everybody gets dumped, but the other person knows that they're not treating you with respect and trust, and their behavior gets worse and worse.
Yes.
And then at some point they're like, well, this partner, she's not that important. She doesn't even value herself. I think I'll cheat on her, or I think I'll eject and surprise her and break up with her out of the blue, or I think I'll just do whatever the hell I want and see if she's still there.
That's so true. I was just having a discussion with a friend the other day that the more that the partner mistreats you, the more they lose respect for you.
Right.
And once the respect is gone, it's like there's a tendency to just kind of roll over you.
Right.
So that's very true. So once you're being disrespected, that's a huge signal.
That's a huge signal that you have not actually listened to your intuition and been brave enough and courageous enough to accept the change that comes with listening to your intuition.
Right. And I think a nice thing, what comes to me right now is if listeners are like, well, what should I do? Is to write a letter to yourself about what you want. And if what you have right now is not in alignment with what you want, what is the one small step you can take towards that path? And again, it doesn't have to be a huge shift. It could just be one small step. If you want to be more more spiritual, well, can you join a meditation group? Can you go to a yoga class? Like, what's one little step that you can take to get on that path?
Right. And all of the things that we had talked about previously in the podcast about eating soul foods and developing your five senses and paying attention to your dreams and having more fun and listening to your body and being more childlike, all of these things are going to help you break free from dysfunction, whether it's a job or a partner or living in the wrong country.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about spending time with people that uplift and inspire you. You should surround yourself with people that when you come away from that, you're just bursting with energy. You feel so inspired and uplifted.
I completely agree. There are so many people on earth. Why do we put up with people who are out of alignment with our values and make us feel shamed and not of value? I'm at a point in my life where as soon as I walk into that and I notice, like, okay, I'm not valued, I'm not feeling in my power here, they don't appreciate what I bring to the table, I have started to just turn around and be affable while I leave, but get the heck out.
Yeah. Life is too short. There you go. Amen, sister. Life is too short. And the last one we're going to leave you with today, which is my favorite, is spending time in nature. Because when you connect with nature, when you're outside, walking in a park, forest, beach, hiking, whatever you're doing, that's when you can access your intuition as well, because you're in this an amazing energetic environment, and you're not in front distracted by TV or computers, hopefully not distracted by your phone. Put your phone away and just spend time in nature.
I completely agree about letting the gunas of the universe, the air, the space, the water, the fire, the earth, let them permeate you. Let yourself become one with that nature, whether you're in a park or on a lake or in a mountain, and allow the ions to rebalance your system. I go out in the woods every day for that reason. And every moment that we're on technology, iPhones and iPads and computers, we're actually getting out of balance.
Yeah.
And so we have to leave the phone home to go get rebalanced in nature.
Right, absolutely. And another thing on that point, one final point is, leave your phone out of your bedroom. If you need for some reason to have it in your bedroom, please put it on airplane mode so that you're not affected by those signals overnight. So just put it on airplane mode if you're using for alarm, but ideally get an old-fashioned alarm and get the technology out of the bedroom.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Amy, another amazing discussion.
It has been. I think they're getting better and better and longer and longer. I hope that the audience could hang with us for as long as we went on and on.
Yeah, I love this subject, and I think it's something that, needs to be discussed a lot more, and for people just to really tune in. And it's not woo-woo, it's not airy-fairy, it's something that's very real, and just have some childlike wonder and play with your own intuition.
I love it. Thank you so much, Colette, for inviting me to talk about this topic and be part of your journey towards your new life and listening to your intuition.
Well, I continue to look forward to having more discussions. We've got a lot more discussions to have here, Amy.
And we'll do it the long distance until I come to the south of France.
There you go. That's a great idea. Thanks so much, Amy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that chat with Amy all about intuition. And I'd love to hear your stories, as I said earlier in the podcast, about following your intuition and what came out of it. And you can share those stories on the new Facebook group called Elements of Ayurveda Podcast. I'll put a link in the show notes here. And if you want to talk further with me, don't forget that you can take advantage of the 30-minute free discovery call where we can chat about whatever you want, whether it's about your health or your intuition, and I can give you tips and guidelines. So thanks again for listening to the podcast, and don't forget to subscribe so they'll automatically download for you, and a rating and review will be fantastic. It helps others to find the show. Thanks again. Take good care of yourself.